Apologies to any of you who logged in about an hour ago. We hope most of you have been able to rejoin the webinar at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time this morning. For today's webinar, this series with JBear is a collaboration to show upcoming trends and new ways of thinking in the world of advertising. If you could advance to off Madison Ave. Hey, JB. A little bit about Off Madison Ave. Thank you. Off Madison Ave is a full service interactive and marketing and public relations agency founded in 1998. We're here in Phoenix, Arizona, as I mentioned, and we have about 35 industry focused experts. At Off Madison Ave, we help clients like Starwood, Nike, and the Arizona Office of Tourism build relationships with their customers. This is no easy feat considering a customer's information gathering and engagement is as unique and as individual as they are. And while many of us thought digital would be the end all be all, Jay, I'm sure you were thinking that when you sold your company to Off Madison Ave in 2005, Mighty Interactive, yes?
Yes, that seems like a long time ago now.
It's the dark ages now. But you know what? You simply can't throw up a website, a Facebook page, a blog, an email, and call it good these days. We're now entering an era where success depends largely on delivering the right information via the right vehicle at the right time to the right audience. That's a lot of rights. Off Madison Ave helps brands navigate those questions, and we're pleased to present today's webinar with Jay Bear of Convince and Convert. A little bit about Convince and Convert. I would encourage you, if you haven't signed on to Jay's One Social thing, it's probably the best 1 minute read of your day to stay ahead of the curve on the digital landscape and social. Jay is the head of Convince and Convert. They are a social media and content strategy firm. They have corporate and agency clients, 29 of whom are Fortune 500s. Jay, I think you should aim for hitting at least 50 this year. What do you think?
Let's do that.
We'll update
I don't
that.
think I could. I don't think I could handle that actually.
No 50 of the 500.
No.
Convince and Convert also has the #1 content marketing blog in the world. So we'll give you that. You're on top of the mountain for that one.
Thank you.
He's also the author of The Now Revolution, which is a fantastic read. I highly recommend it if you haven't picked it up. And if that mix of content across all of those vehicles doesn't convince you that you have to have a good mix, then I'm going to turn it over to Jay for some additional convincing and converting.
Thanks, Carol. Fantastic to be here. Hey, everybody. Nice to be joined by my good friends at Off Madison Ave. As Carol said, I used to actually work with the good folks at Off Madison Ave for several years, the best years of my life. A much thinner and head full of hair version of me worked at Off Madison Ave for quite a while. Today, we are going to talk all about content, right content at the right time. We're going to move from sorta interested to hell yeah, using focused content. Now, when we talk about content, and I just saw a funny, like 10 seconds before we started this on Social Fresh today, and the title was something along the lines of content marketing isn't just writing a bunch of blog posts. And that is exactly right. We are sort of in this weird space right now where a lot of companies are starting to really buy into the notion that, look, we need to communicate via content, and that's terrific news for everybody. But content doesn't win just because it exists, right? You have to be a little wiser about what content you create and for whom and in what channel. So there are 3 types of content segmentation. The first one is to segment your content by persona. For whom is this particular content intended? These are personas that Off Madison Ave created. We do the same kind of work on occasion at Convince and Convert, where we take your customer research, your customer information, demographics, psychographics, and create fake real people to represent each of your key customers and use those personas to build content that really answers the questions that they have. The second way to segment content is by life cycle. Where are these people in what we call the buyer's journey, right? Some of you who may be more advanced from a life cycle perspective may know the terms TOFU, MOFU, and BOFU, which stands for top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. Top of the funnel, people just getting interested in more of a branding campaign. You get towards the middle, you're starting to give people a little more specific calls to action. And at the end of the consideration funnel, you're starting to give them really detailed information that helps overcome any objections that they may have. So life cycle, where people are in that buyer's journey, in that funnel, is another way to segment your content. This is actually an example from the Arizona Office of Tourism that off Madison Ave works with quite closely. Previously, a lot of the work for the Office of Tourism didn't necessarily segment by life cycle. A lot of the messaging was pretty consistent in terms of call to action around sort of request a visitor's guide, which is pretty common in the travel and tourism space. But using life cycle segmentation, off Madison Ave decided to create a whole series of messages based on top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel considerations, and have different calls to action based on each of those funnel stages. So you can see 1A and 1B, start your adventure, right? Because we're assuming that you're at the top of the funnel. As you get a little bit deeper into 2A and 2B, 2C, it's more choose your adventure, travel Arizona. So the messaging and the calls to action change based on media placement and where people are in the actual funnel stage. There's another version of this that didn't make the slide, which is much more specific when you get into that bottom of the funnel place. Now, the third way to segment your content is by channel. Where does this content exist, right? A blog post isn't necessarily the same thing as a mobile application in terms of where the people who consume that might actually hang out and where they might grab that content. This is actually a terrific chart that we have appropriated from Matt Zelmer that he did about a year and a half ago, and it shows sort of how people change channel, how they change content consumption modality based on life cycle. So it sort of crosses over between the life cycle funnel things we talked about a couple of slides ago and then actual where does this content reside. So you can see when you're more in the top of the funnel, you might see more physical environment kind of things if you go to a retail store. And then later on, you might come back to a retail store to actually get additional information about a product that you've already purchased. I'll let you take a look at this slide in a little bit greater depth after the webinar, but it's a really interesting concept, and it makes a lot of sense. People who consume content via video, for example, may not necessarily be in the same stage of the funnel. Now, the reason this is important, the reason all of this content segmentation is important, and the reason we're having this webinar today is that fundamentally, the way customers research and the way customers buy has changed. And obviously, it's changed over the last decade or so, given the rise of the internet and things of that nature, but it has even changed considerably in the last year or so. And it doesn't matter what you sell. It doesn't matter what kind of company you are, how big your company is, if you're B2B, B2C, government, I don't care. These rules apply, and it merits your consideration. Google, a company you may have heard of, has some amazing research that I very much recommend called the 0 Moment of Truth. It's a free ebook, 0momentoftruth.com. And what they found in this research is that in 2010, people who are shopping online consumed 5.3 pieces of online information before making a purchase. Okay, so that could be a review, it could be a product description, it could be a video, it could be a blog post, it could be a whatever. 5.3 separate pieces of online information before making a purchase. In 2011, just 1 year later, it was 10.4 pieces of online information. So in 1 year, consumers require almost double the amount of online information before making a purchase. That has significant implications across the board. What it has done is made all of our customers passive aggressive. Our ability to access information and learn about products in a very self-serve, not self-serving, but self-serve way has made us passive aggressive. Any of you who have been online for more than 4 years remember a time when companies purposely did not put very much information on their websites because the idea was to just give people enough information that they could call a salesperson or use a contact us form, and a live body would actually take from there, have a conversation via telephone, if you remember how that works, and try and close the deal. And now it doesn't work like that, right? Now we want all the information ourselves, and we talk to a salesperson as a last resort. In fact, this statistic backs this up. This blows me away. In B2B, this is a specific B2B stat. The Corporate Executive Board did a survey last year that found that 60% of the purchasing decision is made before a sales rep is contacted. 60%, right? So we've already made up more than half of our minds before we talk to a human being, because we don't want to fill out that contact us form anymore, because we know what's going to happen. We're going to get a bunch of other emails, and then we're going to get a phone call, and people are going to bug us. We want to self-serve information until we cannot get any more information ourselves. Then we have to ask a real person for assistance, but that is the last resort, not the first resort. So if you are not creating content across the board that serves not only different personas, but also different stages of the buyer cycle and across different channels, the 3 ways to segment content we talked about, you are missing opportunities to convert customers, to move them from sort of interested to hell yeah. The problem that we have is that most companies who haven't gotten all the way down into the weeds in this stuff are acting like 19-year-old dudes. And this is a term that Gary Vaynerchuk coined that I'm appropriating for this webinar here today. And when we say that those companies are like a 19-year-old dude, what we mean is that they are trying to close the deal on the first date. Maybe you have a blog. Maybe you have rewritten your website to make it more SEO friendly. Maybe you have created a nifty infographic. But yet, we still oftentimes think, well, geez, we've got this blog, so how come nobody has called us yet? How come we're not generating tons of leads from the blog? It doesn't work that way, right? We've got to fill the informational donut hole. Just because you have some content doesn't mean that you have enough content for a buyer or a prospective buyer to make a buying decision. Okay? In some cases, we've got the outer ring, right? We've got the actual donut, the basic information around, getting people aware of you, or do they have questions about you, etc. But what we don't have is filling the middle. We don't have the conversion level content, the specific content that people need to take the next step. You have to realize this, that every potential customer who shows up on anything that you have online, website, slide share, Facebook page, LinkedIn group, don't care, every potential customer that shows up on any online property that you have has questions in their head. Right? They have questions about you, about the category, about the products, about the warranty, about God knows what. But they have questions, because the fundamental truth is that people are not going to your website to be entertained. You are not Hulu, you are not TMZ, probably, you are not anything like that, right? People come to your site because they need help or they have questions, and what you need to do as a marketer is find out those questions, determine what those questions are using customer surveys, web analytics, mining your search data on your site, find out what those questions are, and then methodically answer those questions. Map them to the customer life cycle. Map them to the funnel. So if some of your questions have, or some of your customers have a question about how long does it take to get a new shower installed, then you need to answer that question with content. If your customers or prospective customers have a question about, is there a warranty on your service, you need to answer that question with content. If existing customers are thinking about buying from you a second time and they want to know, is there a discount for loyal customers, you need to answer that question with content. And when we looked at that channel chart a few slides ago that showed, in-store and video and mobile app and all that kind of stuff, it's important to recognize that, because a lot of times what happens is companies say, well, sure, we have that question answered on our site, and it's 2 sentences on a web page that's 7 clicks away from the home page. So when I say you have to map questions and answers to the customer lifecycle and answer customer questions with content, I don't mean does it exist anywhere. It has to exist in an obvious place. One of the great rules of web analytics that doesn't get talked about enough is that every level of your site structure that you go down, you lose 30% of your audience at minimum. Okay, so if you figure your homepage is 100%, that theoretically everybody can see your homepage, Not and no more than 70% of the people will see a top level page. No more than 40% of people will see a second level page, and no more than 10% of your people will see a third level page. And in reality, those numbers are actually much, much smaller. So I don't care if you have two sentences. What matters is it dead obvious? How can they access that content a click away, 2 clicks away? So once you have those questions and you have the answers concluded or developed, you need to build the ultimate FAQ. All the time when people say, "Hey, we need to, really get serious about content. What should we do?" First thing you should do is figure out the 20 questions that your customers ask you most often. You know who can also help you with that in addition to research? Ask your sales guys. That's all they do is answer questions. And your customer service team. Take the 20 questions that you get asked most often and build the ultimate online FAQ. This is one for a company called Holiday World, which is about 2 hours from where I am standing in Bloomington, Indiana. Holiday World is actually located in Santa Claus, Indiana, and I'm not making that up. Holiday World is a family-owned theme park, both roller coasters and land rides, and then also a very large water park with like water park rides and stuff. It's really quite awesome. And instead of licensing characters like Spider-Man or Harry Potter, they actually have holiday characters, right? So there's Christmas Land and Thanksgiving Land and Halloween Land. I'm not making this up. But Holiday World does an amazing job, not only in content but also in social media. But for example, this is their brand new water coaster called the Mammoth, which is evidently the world's longest water coaster. I'll be going down there Labor Day weekend, so look for me at Holiday World. But on this page, they answer every conceivable customer question about this thing. On the right-hand side is a chart that shows all the different facts about it, right? Little sort of factoids and bullet points. Then they have where is it within the park. They've got an interactive map. Then underneath that, they've got tips for enjoying the ride. Then they have 3 different videos for every single ride in this amusement park. They've got one from the front view, one from the side view, and a under construction video so you can see how it was built. I mean, literally, you've got a pretty good sense of what your experience is going to be before you even get in your car. That's a good FAQ. Here's one that Off Madison did recently for the Phoenix School of Law. This is actually an offline version. This exists in print and is also an online sort of view book for the Phoenix School of Law, which is a private legal school in the greater Phoenix area. And so this view book really helps prospective customers understand what their experience would be at Phoenix School of Law from a student perspective. Previous to this, a lot of the materials that the school had, as is often the case in higher ed, were written not necessarily from a student perspective, but from more of an industry or faculty perspective. And so we're talking about that persona segmentation, right? This is a good example of creating content that answers questions from prospective customers based on their persona, right? So this is content that is specifically for prospective students. There's different content for parents. There's other different content for prospective legal partners in the community, etc. This is one of my very favorite examples of the online FAQ, and this is for a company based in San Diego, no, not San Diego, Los Angeles, I think, called Expert Bail. And Expert Bail is a chain of bail bonds companies, like a franchise organization for bail bonds companies. And, everybody, I think, kind of has heard of bail bonds, especially if you watch Dog the Bounty Hunter or whatever. But you don't really know how it works unless you've been to jail lately, and I'm going to guess that most of the people on the webinar have not been to jail lately. And so if for whatever reason you need to get involved in the bail industry, it's a bit of a mystery. So what they have done here is literally created an FAQ. And what is a bail bond? How does a bail bond work? Who is an indemnitor or guarantor? And they've taken young, bright, attractive, well-spoken women, unscary, not exactly what you're thinking about when you consider the bail bonds guy, and there's 30-second videos, and then each video also has a written description in case you're not really all about watching videos. Really, really smart way to answer questions quickly and effectively. One of the things you've got to remember about the life cycle and this funnel concept is that it extends post-purchase. Yes, we talked about, as the theme of this webinar, going from sort of interested to hell yeah and converting customers, and that's definitely what you can do with that sort of FAQ content. But the old rule is it costs 5 times more to get a new customer than it does to retain a current customer. And content matters to current customers too. In fact, I would almost argue that strategically you should first and foremost think about what content can we offer to our current customers that helps them buy from us again or encourages them to recommend us to a friend. Maybe if you sort of flipped the funnel, there's a great book from Joe Jaffe called that, Flip the Funnel. If you flipped the funnel and said, let's focus on our current guys first and new guys second, you might actually be better off from a business perspective. Some of you may have sat in on the prior webinar that we did together off Madison Ave and myself called What Happens When Facebook and Email Share a Tab, all about the confluence of Facebook and email and how they're very similar strategically and operationally. That particular content, which had a free ebook associated with it, was used by OMA to communicate in a very informational way to current agency clients. So if you're a current client of the agency, you got invited to the webinar, you got a copy of the ebook, keeps the agency on top of the customer's mind. Also, if the agency wasn't at that time working on email and or Facebook for that particular customer, it gives you an opportunity to start having a dialogue about those kind of services. So content for your current customers can and should be used to cross-sell, upsell, and solicit advocacy on the part of those current customers. It's also a good way to tie together social media and content marketing. So this is an example that Off Madison did right around the big game. I don't think I'm allowed to say Super Bowl on the webinar, but I just did, around the big game. And it was the Snack Bowl Challenge for Bar S Foods, which is a manufacturer of meat products. And they had a Facebook promotion. It was Team Lunch Meat versus Team Hot Dog. I do not remember who actually won that contest. I'm going to go with Team Hot Dog just because it's fantastic, but I do not remember who actually won. A good way to get current customers excited by tying content, sort of what are the best ways to make a hot dog, which is the nature of this promotion, with social media. Certainly your existing customers are much more likely to participate with you in social than prospective customers are, right? Social is really the playground for people who already love you. The rule of thumb here, right, and the way to remember this is that content is fire and social media is gasoline. From a social media standpoint, I will tell you this, having worked with lots of companies on this, it is a heck of a lot easier to use social media to promote great content than to use social media to promote your company. Here's an amazing ebook we created about something that you're genuinely interested in is a much easier assignment in social than we're a great company, look how awesome we are, please click our tweet. But overall, it's not just about content. As we said, it's not about can you make a bunch of content? Can you create this colossal volume of iffy content just to say that you did? It's not about volume. It's about the right content, right? It's about segmenting your content by persona. It's about segmenting your content by need, life cycle, and segmenting your content by channel, right? It's about, as Carol said, the right content for the right people at the right time and in the right channel. That's something that the agency did for East Valley Diagnostic Imaging. And this is a circumstance where it could have just been a very sort of rote kind of program, but instead there's a press kit, an email template, a new website. There's a whole series of content executions, both online and offline, and each of them are mapped to different audiences with different needs at different times, and that is, in fact, the right way to make this happen. If you'd like more information about this content, about content marketing, lifecycle, funnel, drama, dry ice, lasers, you will receive, after this webinar concludes, a copy of Off Madison Ave's brand spanking new, brand new as of today ebook.
Hot off the presses.
Hot off the presses, literally, hot off the PDF. And it's called Messages May Vary, the 7 elements of creating compelling, messaging architecture for your brand. And it's all about the different ways that you can communicate and how different types of messages and different aspects of messaging work together to create a unified umbrella brand position for your company. It's really, really interesting stuff. It's great content. There's thought starters, there's do's and don'ts. There's some really interesting examples from real companies, some that the agency has worked with, and others that are sort of huge national brands that you will have seen watching television, etc. A lot of checklists and step-by-step stuff. It's a great ebook. You will be delighted to receive it soon. I think maybe even today. We'll see how that shakes out. Is that right, Carol? Is that going to happen right now?
It will happen right now. Yes, and to answer that burning question, Jay, Team Hot Dog won in a landslide victory in the meat challenge.
The problem with lunch meat is that it's a little bit amorphous of a category, right? Because there's a lot of different lunch meats, and like, well, what do you mean? Is it salami? Is it
Is it
turkey?
ham?
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
we got to
broad
figure that
category.
out. Mm. Hey,
Yeah, hot dog is hot dog.
speaking of burning questions, we do have a few minutes for some folks who have posted to the boards. I
Good. We
don't
got
know
some
if you can.
questions in the chat here. Let's
We
do it up.
do, we do. So a good question is in regard to the funnel within the digital space, how do you measure effectiveness when it comes to the right level of brand awareness? And it's great to see some measurement questions. This is a very intelligent group we have here.
There are four types of content metrics. Um, Awareness, right? So and consumption, if you will. So how many people read it, downloaded it, watched it, whatever. Okay, so you've got consumption metrics. That's bucket A. Bucket B is sharing metrics, right? So hopefully your content is shareable. So how many people forwarded to a friend, shared it on Facebook, all things of that nature, pinned it, if you will. Third bucket of metrics are leads. So how many people consumed this content and then became a lead, eventually filled out that contact us form or called a sales rep or did something like that. That's going to require you to do some analytics mining to be able to keep that trail warm over time. And then the last one is sales metrics. So among the people who actually saw your ebook and then eventually filled out the contact us form, how many of them eventually became a customer, and what was the actual revenue generation from that group? So it's awareness or consumption, sharing, leads, and sales. That's sort of the metrics chain for content. And what you need to do is pull metrics from each of those buckets to stitch together sort of a mathematical narrative to prove that it works.
Great. So we have a question from someone who has a great problem, right? They have too much content. If they already have a good amount of content, what's the best first step to figure out where and how to use it?
Well, I would probably take the existing content and do a content inventory and analysis. So take all the things that you have, create a spreadsheet that says, okay, what is the content? Um, is it on a scale of 1 to 5, okay or amazing? Um, where does it exist? What is its iteration? Is it a blog post? Is it a video, etc.? But then perhaps most importantly, identify which personas would be interested in that content and then what specific questions it answers. Okay? And what you'll find is that you're probably over answering some questions. And even if you have a ton of content, you're probably under answering others. And when you do that kind of gap analysis, what you'll find are the holes in your program that need to be filled. And ultimately, you probably will want to get rid of some of your existing content and create some new stuff.
So I think we have time, Jay, for one more. This is
Okay?
another good, interesting question. I think we're all trying to figure out the when and where and why. And this question pertains to figuring out that customer life cycle and what data we should use to determine what they're doing and when. How do we creep on our customers?
Well, certainly your web analytics type program is going to be the best way to do that. But to really get serious about it, you probably should have some sort of a CRM system that will allow you to track that this person read this blog post, downloaded this ebook, looked at this SlideShare presentation, etc., opened this email, clicked on this email. That's the kind of data that you want to track, cross-channel, multi-touch points. So you probably will need something like Marketo, Infusionsoft, Salesforce.com. Those are all things that the agency can help you put into place, and then have that unified data store that will track all of those customer behaviors across different modalities, and then put frosting on top of that, right? So you've got the database, and then you've got an email program that feeds into it. You've got a website that feeds into it. You have a social media program that feeds into it. Increasingly, that can work as well. Another option would be HubSpot for that type of database.
Great. Jay, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate everyone coming today and logging in. And as we mentioned, the ebook will be available. I'm going to say 24 hours from today's presentation. We might be sending that out tomorrow as well. And with that in mind, for those of you that have feedback on the webinar series, would like to see specific topics discussed with Jay, please don't hesitate to send us an email with your feedback and comments. We greatly appreciate that. And Jay, with that, we'll say so long until next month.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.